Thank you for putting your time aside to share some thoughts with me. I'd like today to deal with the very challenging topic of bullying. And as you know, bullying is seeming to be on the rise, and it is something that bothers parents, particularly caring, sensitive parents. So I just want to say, have you ever been the victim of bullying? Have you ever been bullied yourself? If so, what was it that allowed you to get through that experience? And again, if you were the victim of bullying, how did you work it through later? How did you work through the damage later? Bullying is not a new idea. It's not something that has just come out of our 21st century, but I think we have to understand that it is increasing in its nastiness, and we really do need to have some strategies in place to deal with it. Just recently in the daily press, there was the most poignant, shall we call it, research information given in an editorial, and it was just explaining that after maybe 6 or 7 days of the same bullying behaviour being directed towards you, your brain actually changes. It affects your brain, and the damage is shown in the way the person who's been victimised starts to believe and starts to act as if what is being thrown at them in the bullying words, particularly, that bullying stuff, they start to believe it and they start to act as if it's true. And this is really tragic. It means that the brain has been truly changed, and then I guess from there on we're hoping that we can work with damage control and repair it. But what I want to do is share just a very, very positive approach with you and say, look, let's go down a different path, because one of the things we should say is that even though bullying is horrendous, if there are 100 children in the school, be it primary or secondary, or even 100 people in your workplace, there will only be a minority of bullies and only a minority of people who succumb to the bullying. That doesn't excuse it, but it does remind us that there are many people who are strong and able to withstand these things. So our quest today is to really look at what are those possible strategies, and I'd like to share some with you. But before I do, I just want to go back and say, can you see how beautiful this very small piece of jewellery is? It's a miniature of this 5-pointed star. And I have shown you that before, and we've talked about how the 5 points represent the 5 physical senses in our body, which we have to develop. There is another little story with this. In the Egyptian tradition, the star is called a kuti, and the kuti is the star in the heaven that we become when the wise, not me, I'll rephrase that, when the wise ones die, and the mythology says they go to heaven and become stars that shine back their wisdom. And so I'd like to suggest that our children all need to have a kuti around them. They need to have an advocate. Every child growing up needs to know there's a kuti who is looking out for them. Now, it's not somebody who will protect them as if they are in a military assault. It's not somebody who will do it all for them. It's rather somebody who will engage with them and allow them to become all that they can be, and indeed all that they came to be. And so I want to just say, every time you think of a star, every time you think of a child around you, or I am mindful that we have bullying in the workplace, so even if you see a fellow colleague at work moving into this victim mode, stop and just think about the kuti and ask yourself, am I being an advocate for them? And what would that role of advocacy really involve? Well, let's go through that. what we really want to do is recognise that the bully is fearful. A bully is somebody who has such low self-esteem, has such a dreadful sense of disconnection, somebody who is so fearful inside that they must use the remaining percentage of their mind and being to attack something which they see as weaker and more fearful than themselves. That's the full definition of the bully. What we want is to allow our children and our colleagues to become strong enough to be gentle. And I'd like to share with you this book you may have come across before. I recommend it. It's Dan Millman, and it's called The Secret of the Peaceful Warrior. And in that story, Dan talks about this kid who here is subject to bullying. He meets an old man who is a neighbour, who happens to be called Socrates, and Socrates sums up the situation and says, first of all, this child needs to have physical strength. So he engages him in a lot of activities that make him physically very strong. And when that stage has been reached, then this kid knows that he is able to go and tackle the bully. He knows that he could take on a fight and that he would win. And oddly enough, as he achieves that state, he realises he doesn't need to. And so he actually goes out and befriends the bully and turns the situation around. And that's pretty much what we are wanting with our children and our fellow adults, that we really would like them to reach this stage of inner connection and inner strength, so that they know that they could take on anybody, but they don't have to. They can actually be strong enough to be gentle. Now, the strategies, there's about 5 I think I'd like to share with you. The first one goes back to conversation. Do you remember we talked about conversation creates consciousness? In that, when we're conversing, we are allowing the child to develop the unshakable knowledge that what they are thinking inside has some space, and they can exchange with other people. They can learn as they're thinking, what does that mean, or how does that work? They're developing through the conversation what I'd like to call consequential thinking. Means that for every action there is an outcome. And so we first have conversation, developing consequential thinking. The second thing is that we have you as the advocate, so the child doesn't have to zoom around and be the adult. The child should be confidently in a magical world growing up, and as an adult we should have our own magic and have somebody who's our advocate. We need somebody who will listen to us, so that when we have a story to tell, we are listened to, and that's a very important role of the adult. And I recommend that you do listen to your kids when they come home, or listen to your partner and just suss out what is really in the depths of that conversation. Then develop the physical strength, get them into bushwalking or yoga or tai chi or something like that, and also consider learning a musical instrument, because there is such a confidence that grows from that, knowing that things going on inside, things that you're thinking and hearing, are true and valid, and it is from that inner space that we develop our strength. So as we pull this together, what I'm asking you to do is say, bullying may only be 1 in 100, but it exists. The key is finding inner connection, inner strength, physical knowledge, consciousness that allows a child to say, I could beat you up, but I'm not going to. I'm actually going to reach out and be a possible friend. I'm going to walk a different path, because the adults around me do. I'm learning from example, and I see adults that are strong enough to be gentle, able to listen, able to converse, and above all are allowing me to find my inner strength. So I'll leave that with you. Let's put it into the meditation focus this week and really work on learning to be so connected that we can be strong enough to be gentle. Thank you.